Well, we're excited to get back out here again tomorrow night. We face against a really tough Missouri team. I think Missouri's a really talented team. I've been really, really impressed watching film on them through the first couple games. They're going to be, I think, a much, much better team than they were last year. I think the addition of Drew Smith, in particular, transfer from Evansville, had to sit out last year, has added a completely different dimension to their team. He makes guys better. He makes great decisions. He can get in the paint. He can score. He is a very, very good point guard. He's got great size. And then obviously you got the big fella, Jeremiah Tillman, inside, who we became very familiar with last year when he kicked our tails. He's a walking double-double. He's every bit of 6'10", 6'11", 260 pounds. And it just seems like he's always open. He's so big, and Coach Martin does a great job of designing their offense to get him the ball. Then obviously got guys like Mark Smith on the perimeter who can really, really, really shoot the ball. Knowing Missouri, from last year, they're going to be tough. They're going to be physical. They're going to rebound. They're going to be one of the bigger, more physical teams that we play against all year. One of the more athletic teams that we play against all year. And we got to be able to answer that challenge in order to come out on the good side tomorrow night.
Coach, Paul Scruggs was a game-time decision last Friday. How is he progressing? Do you anticipate him practicing today and possibly playing tomorrow?
He is progressing. He did not practice yesterday. Hopeful that he can practice today. I don't know whether it'll be full go or not. He may just go non-contact. It is definitely getting better, so he is definitely day-to-day. I would say that he's probable tomorrow to play. But again, I think there's definitely a chance that he doesn't play as well. So, but again, it's next man up. If he doesn't play, it doesn't really matter, man. We're gonna, next guy will step up.
How much, or maybe not at all, do you talk to these guys about what happened last year? That was obviously not a great game for you guys,
Yeah.
but is that a point of motivation for these guys to kind of right that wrong?
Yeah, I think revenge can kind of be weak in a lot of ways, but obviously, learning from that game, right? What didn't work, and trying to explain to those guys rather than just saying, "Hey, we want to be tougher. We want to just go out there and compete and beat them." That sounds all good, but it comes down to execution. Be able to run our offense, be able to run our defense, do our defensive system the correct way. Last year we had to play a lot of zone in that game. We got major foul trouble early on, and I thought that really changed the game. Just to be honest with you, when we went zone, they crushed us, and they did a good job playing inside out. And they were the tougher team last year, and it wasn't even close. And those guys know that. Our returning players know that for sure. And just trying to tell those guys what works and what doesn't work, you learn from that game.
Seems like Smith and Smith run the show. You talked about Drew. What are your impressions of Mark Smith?
Mark can really shoot the ball. He's one of those guys. He's a really strong kid physically. His legs are strong. His upper body's strong. He's always on balance, and he can shoot the ball from deep, like with great range. He's a talented kid. I think he can really shoot and score the ball. Whereas Drew's more playmaker for them. Drew's more the point guard, trying to set up guys. Now, Drew can score as well, but Mark's definitely the best shooter on their team.
Going back to last year's game, 4 guys that are here now, still here, played in that game, and the rest of the team has never played in Missouri. What do you tell them about this team, and especially, a guy like Tillman, who you said is really tough to defend?
They're going to be as big of a team as we're going to play all year. The size, the length, the physicality, the athleticism is high major. It really is. And that goes from their guards all the way to their front court. Drew Smith's their point guard. He's probably, 6'3", 6'4". They're big and strong. And just telling those guys that they're going to be tough. They are going to be tough. They play really, really hard. They play really, really physical on the glass. Their defense is very aggressive in the half court. They try to be disruptive, so you can't run your half-court offense. And we got to be able to execute our way out of trouble and not just play our way out of trouble. I think that's really important against Missouri.
How, watching them the way that you have thus far, how confusing is it that Missouri was a team picked, I think, to finish 13th in the SEC this year?
If there's 12 better teams in the SEC, I'd like to see them. They're good. Again, Drew Smith, I probably can't. Words don't do it justice how good of a player he is. He's really, really good. And he has the ability to make everybody else on that team better. They didn't have that last year, just to be honest. When I watched them on film, they didn't have a point guard. Drew Smith makes great decisions. He's a terrific defender. He can obviously score as well, but to me, he takes their whole team to another level. And they got better depth. Now all of a sudden you got Trey Jackson, who's a freshman, who's talented. Kobe Brown's a freshman, who's talented. Xavier Pinson comes off the bench and averages double figures for them at the guard spot. Torrance Watson can shoot the ball off the bench for those guys. So again, they're a deep team. They were a little bit young last year in some spots, and those guys got a lot more experience. And sometimes you got to take your lumps in order to gain some experience. But I think they're a tournament level team this year for sure.
This is year 3 for Coach Martin. It seems
Yeah.
He's getting his guys.
Yeah, I think he has guys that fit him. You could tell. I think those kids are tough. I think they play really, really, really hard. They're defensive minded. I think Ken Palm had them, around 20th defensively, and it may have changed a little bit, depending upon the games last night. But they're a very good, hard-nosed, tough defensive team, and that takes on the personality of their coach.
Do they play many minutes with Pinson and Drew Smith together in the backcourt? Does that create a lot of problems?
Yeah, it does. It does. I think just having two playmakers like that out there on the floor, it changes the games. Predominantly they set a lot of ball screens for Drew Smith and for Xavier Pinson when he's in the game specifically. They rely on, when you have two of those guys out there on the floor at the same time, man, it becomes a problem. So I think both those guys are really talented.
It should be interesting to see how Zach matches up with the big guy Tillman.
Yeah.
You're probably going to have to cycle him in somehow.
Yeah, we're going to rotate him. Obviously Tyreek is one of the tougher guys in the Big East, and he's got to show that tomorrow against Jeremiah Tillman. He's got a huge challenge. Zach Fremantle has never played against anybody like Jeremiah Tillman. Just his sheer size. He's almost 6'11", 260 pounds, and he's good, man. He's skilled, and so we got to make his catches really tough. And I always say the best post defense a lot of times is ball pressure, right? We can't allow easy post feeds into Jeremiah Tillman. We got to make his catches tough. We got to make him catch it out further on the floor than he wants to. And then at the same time, when you talk about the weak side help, and this is where Missouri does a great job, is when you got to get weak side help, like we got to load to the ball, we got to be really, really, really tight along that weak side. So it kind of goes in that progression, right? The ball pressure's got to be right. We got to make his catches tough, and then we got to have great weak side help, and then be ready for them to skip the ball across the floor and play out of that.
Tillman's so big, but he seems to establish himself low. Really, he sprints the floor. He gets there. You got to beat him to the spot.
Yeah, we do. They do a lot of ball screen, and then they roll him to the rim to post, and they go a lot of 4 out, 1 in. So they try to really space you out on the floor, and then use him inside, his role, and then his post ups to either create rotations, right? And they do a great job of that. They're very simple offensively, but they execute it really well. And again, their guards are making great decisions this year on where the ball should go, which I think's really changed their team.
Travis, the guy we haven't talked about really is Miles Hansen, and he practiced with the team last year and is a walk-on now. But how did he get here? Was there a correlation between when you guys were looking at Kyle Caslin at Columbia and Miles was interested?
Yeah, no, there was not really any correlation with Kyle necessarily. Ben Johnson's obviously from Minnesota, one of our assistant coaches, and Miles is from Minnesota. So, Ben knew his high school coach and knew that he was transferring. And at the time last year, a lot of people don't know this, we had one official visit left in the spring when I got the head job. So we needed bodies and just to be able to practice, and when we knew Miles would obviously have to sit out, but he would help us practice. Because I was just worried if we wouldn't even have 10 guys to be able to play 5-on-5 last year. And, Miles did a great job, works his tail off, works really, really hard, plays really hard. I think he's going to help our team here at some point. His time hasn't come, really to this point of the season, but, I wouldn't be shocked to see him make some really positive, impactful plays for us kind of throughout the season. Thank you.